Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 168 of the Citrix Session. I'm your host, Bill Sutton with XenTegra. Also on the call today with me are Geremy Myers of Citrix. Geremy, you want to say hello? Introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, happy Monday. So I'm Geremy. I have been on many of the show here, so it's good to be back again
Yeah, good
and
to have
uh
you.
and chat through this. Yeah.
Todd, you want to say hello?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bill. Welcome, everyone, and glad to be back. I think this is a 2 weeks in a row of two episodes in a row, so I'm
Yeah,
getting back in track of being a guest on this.
yep. We appreciate it, Todd. Andy Whiteside, you want to say hello real quick?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And Todd, I got to make fun of you real quick. So I listened to the Citrix podcast on provisioning services the other day, and they were just like throwing up about Todd Smith, Todd Smith, Todd Smith. I was like, come on, can we just get to the
Ironically, the guy who hired me at Ardence, I actually saw him last week. He was up at his son's house in New Hampshire, and he's like, "Yeah, listen to the podcast." He goes, "You got my voice almost down pat." I said, "Yep."
Well, there's no
Oh,
doubt
that's
they
fantastic.
associate you with provision, which is great. You deserve it. So, hey, guys, Andy Whiteside, founder of this thing we got going over here at XenTegra. And that thing is the world's most in-tune Citrix partner on the planet. I think that's true. We try to be. We certainly act that way. We try to. If you're listening to this podcast, it's because we do this all the time. We try to add value. We try to go above and beyond to lead the community. We're going to be doing some more stuff Bill and I talked about this morning, getting back out there, getting the local user groups going, that kind of stuff. But if you're listening to this podcast and you use Citrix, whether it's because you need every project done for you or whether you just need a little bit of partner to lean on for like a support contract, that's us.
Thank you, Andy. So it's interesting. Yes, we do a lot of these. XenTegra, we do a lot of podcasts on different topics, but just for the heck of it, I went back and looked. This is episode 168, as I said at the outset. We started this on October 14th, 2019, Andy. So that's almost 4 years ago, if I did my math right. Actually, 5 years ago. I'm sorry. Is that right? Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's right.
And we've done them consistently, and other partners, other vendors, they try and then they quit. We do it nonstop and consistently because we're passionate about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And with that, we'll talk about today's topic. It is a blog article written by Stephen Beals. The title of it is Announcing the General Availability of Citrix DAS Backup and Restore. So this covers a relatively new feature that enables administrators to back up and restore elements of Citrix DAS. So let's see, Todd, you and I kind of started off agreeing on this. Why don't you kind of give a general overview for the group, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so I think for years, a lot of our Citrix administrators that are out in the field have really struggled with, okay, how do I back up the environment and the configurations of my Citrix implementation, especially around DAS, right? Do you back up just the servers? Do you back up the data's always tends to get backed up, but it's really what are the configurations, what are the policies, and all of the other stuff that goes into, what makes the environment function properly, right? And as we've seen in the recent past, there's been a lot of challenges about getting things back up and running as quickly as possible, whether it be the endpoints, whether it be some server OSs, whether it be connectivity out to the data. So there was a desperate need for some type of tool or functionality that could actually do that. And I think this backup and restore capability in DAS, is quite timely, but also much needed.
Absolutely. So think about it for our listeners. Imagine you've got an environment that's got hundreds of published applications or multiple delivery groups of different images that are delivering VDI or virtual desktops to users. That information, I don't know, historically, Todd, I think it was an export or you backed up the data store or a combination thereof back in the old days in presentation server. It wasn't that simple. It was simple in the sense that most of that data was in your data store. So if you were backing up your data store, then that was a big part of it. But the challenge with that was if you wanted to restore, you literally had to restore everything. Couldn't restore individual published apps or things along those lines. This gives you that capability, right?
It does.
Does.
And you think about it, this is all stuff that used to be a manual process,
Yes.
right? Everyone wants to be able to basically have a stored routine or a stored recovery method that they don't need to think about it. They don't need to go and collect the book. I mean, going back to the days of me being a system admin, we had a disaster. We basically spent 3 days rebuilding policies, and this was a Novell server environment, rebuilding all of the user directories by hand, right?
Right.
We don't have the luxury of time anymore. People expect users especially expect things to be back up and running as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. So there's a video in the blog article, and this will be in the show notes, that you can look at that goes through it. But let's talk first about what is backup and restore in DAS. Geremy, you want to take a stab at this one?
Yeah, actually, before we get to this, right,
Sure.
I do want to say we've had we've had a tool for a while that has been able to do this, but what I'd argue is this is way more user friendly.
Yeah.
It's built right into the GUI. So, I know, Bill, you're talking about the old school, what are we doing with an on-prem CVAD site? I think originally, we had the automated config tool. The idea being, how do I take an on-prem config, leverage this tool to export on-prem and go import it into DAS. But I think some smart folks and, eventually product management figured out, we could use this same tool to do backups of my DAS site too. So, and not just that, but there was a way to even sort of schedule this. But, what got created were like some YAML files and some offline files,
right. Yeah, we've used
which, by the way, were fantastic. But, for the typical administrator, honestly, what's simpler, right? And so I think this is what's really slick about this tool itself is the fact that, number one, it's completely GUI based, right? You can do this right out of the GUI. Number two, you can set a lot of the scheduling. In fact, I think the scheduling is much better here than it is in the automated config tool. Not just that, you can get a little fancy too. So if you have a backup that you want to pin, meaning by default this thing does 30 days. And it's circular backups too, meaning once you get to that, well, not 30 days, but 30 backups. And once you get to that 30th backup, when you do backup number 31, it's going to overwrite the oldest. But there's a way to go pin one as well. So say, for instance, you want to have like a, I don't know, like an every 6th month, source of truth backup, if you will. You can have that as well. But to answer your question, you can get pretty granular with what you back up and restore here. So individual site configurations, applications, or the entire site, right? So you've got a lot of breadth in what you can do here.
Yeah, absolutely. It says in the article itself, it reflects that you can do a component at a time, like you said, and you can back up a component at a time or the whole thing. And then when you go to restore, you can get more granular about that, which, again, I think a lot of times what we've seen, someone inadvertently deletes an application group, or they delete a set of inadvertently delete some, or even make a change to a published application that renders it non-functional. The ability to restore that single published app or that single group of published apps, that's huge.
Well, what's also slick here is, as opposed to just going right into a restore, there's actually a check mode included too. So
Yes.
You can sort of simulate a restore before you actually do the restore, which is neat.
Yeah, the check mode, basically what it says in the article here is that it displays a list of apps that'll be restored when you run the process. So it's telling you what it's going to do before you actually go forth and do it. All right. So all of these backup and restore actions are also available within the history node of the DAS console. So you can see exactly what was done and when, both from the standpoint of an actual backup and then also from the standpoint of a restore. Any thoughts on this, Geremy, Todd, or Andy?
Yeah. I think it will also tell you who did it too, which is probably just as important.
It does.
So I think this is, we're hitting on something very critical here. And I think the events of the past month have really kind of shone a light on the need for change management, as well as some type of audit control, right?
Right.
What changes were made, who made them, the ability to pre-run a routine before you actually execute it. All of those things, if you were just doing this through command line or some scripting and things like that, that was once again a very manual process. The fact that you have this information documented that you can then, either look back for reference or to be able to show, auditors or investigators, hey, this is exactly what happened. These are who initiated the change, what changes were made, and more importantly, here's a rollback that we can do, right? So we talked at the last session about PBS and the ability to roll out and roll forward and roll back. This is once again based on that same requirements that are out there around efficient and effective management controls.
Absolutely. So I pulled up for those that are looking at the video, I pulled up the blog article, the second screenshot, I guess it is, that reflects the actual history console, and it does reflect the name of the administrator that made the change in the details, as well as what was done. Generally speaking, I imagine that if something's actually restored, it actually shows you that in the details. This capability is available now for all DAS customers. Is that right, guys? All DAS.
It is available for all DAS customers, correct?
Okay.
So what I love about this and the logging and the integration is this is what you always wanted for your on-prem solution.
That's right.
Many. Okay, most people never got to. Now it's turned on by default in a as a service offering. Yet another reason why people need to at least move their paths to an as a service, their platform to an as a service offering.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of reasons for that. This is just one of many that drive the conversation towards moving customers to a platform as a service offering like Citrix DAS. So this is a pretty short article. Any final thoughts here, guys?
Yes. So I could quickly add on to Andy's
Sure.
comment about the automation pieces of it now, and this is where linking into other solutions that are on the marketplace that XenTegra certainly has some experience with and is certified with, is take an event like doing a backup or doing a restore activity, have that automatically open up a ServiceNow service record. Now all of a sudden you've got not only the Citrix environment doing the task, but also now you have a document, and maybe there's additional tasks that need to be made, right? Updating the runbooks, updating all the documentation, adding it into the overall environment library of control scripts and things like that. Now all of a sudden you've got something that is really turning into real automation. Not only automation, but also that sense of auditability and the sense of being able to say, look, these are all the changes that we've made over the past month. These are who signed off on it. This is because really, if you look at ServiceNow as your workflow processing engine, that's where it's going to really bring some value to this. And that's all done through the IT service management connectors that we have within our DAS platform as well as our on-prem platform.
Yeah. I mean, the automation, yes, that's great, and I love it. Just the fact that you're bringing all this information into one place, one platform, ServiceNow, and then take that across all your vendor stack. I don't know how the average IT department does it without doing that.
No, I agree. And the reality is they probably don't do it. It's not captured, or it's only captured when it's needed, and somebody has to go dig it up, right?
No. And this is where you also run the risk of there's one guy that has all this information in his head.
Right.
And if he's impacted by a natural disaster or can't get it into the office or can't get connectivity to do all that stuff, you've got to have that information available, because once again, it's all about return to operations.
Absolutely.
Bill, Bill. So I was perusing the documentation before we hopped on, and the one thing that is not clear is exactly what gets backed up. So we talked about how granular it gets.
Okay.
But if you go into the video and you pause it right at just the right spot, you can see it's everything from like what you might expect: application groups, applications, delivery groups, things like that. Also the policies, the machine catalogs, any of your hosting connections. I mean, essentially anything you can define inside of DAS can be backed up, and can be backed up individually or even restored individually. So you can get pretty granular on what you do here. So maybe you do a full backup, but you just restore an individual piece. You've lost that service principal password for that hosting connection and you blow it away. Here's how you pull it back. That's never happened, I promise.
Yeah.
You can actually get pretty dang granular here. Pretty
Yeah.
neat.
One of the things I really like about this is you can schedule it and have it run, every day or every other day or however, frequently you want it to run. And then, like you said, it just kind of creates 30 backups, and maybe once a month you pin that to the top and then let it run for the next month and then pin that one to the top and so forth. And that way you've always got the last month's backup and then incrementals, as it were, for the remaining 29 days or whatever it is. So I really like the fact that you can just kind of set it and it's there and it's available to you. I remember back in the day setting backups and you'd get notified periodically when they didn't run, and then people forget about them, and all of a sudden they need to do a restore, and lo and behold, it hadn't backed up for a week because it had failed and nobody had taken the time to look at it. So the fact that that this does it for you and you don't really have to change tapes or anything like that, I think is really, really a solid piece.
So what I think is neat about this is, taking a step back, I think this is not a huge feature, right? This is not a huge whiz bang feature, but listen, it's the things like this that folks appreciate, right? It polishes the solution just a little bit. Right before we hopped on, we talked about two or three other things we're going to cover in the upcoming weeks. Right. They're kind of fall in that bucket as well. So, I think these integration points and the continual just innovation in the space is pretty neat, actually. So
let's just call it what it is. There's a lot of people nipping on Citrix's heels. Citrix is continuing to evolve the product more and more and probably faster than ever. And those other products have a lot to keep up with. At a glance, they'll tell you they're the same thing as Citrix, and it's not the same. You don't have the protocols, you don't have all the functionality, and this kind of stuff, creates a whole nother hurdle for the other ones to have to catch up to. And how you could have a solution like this and not have this type of backup. We haven't had it forever here. Now we have it. Every time Citrix adds more value to the platform, the bar gets higher for everybody else who's chasing.
Absolutely. And I think to your point, Andy, a lot of the ones that are nipping at the heels are really still trying to get to the point where they're getting what we would call table stakes, the basic functionality, comparative functionality. But the Citrix keeps raising the bar by continuing to innovate and enhance the product, making it much more difficult for them to catch up, eventually.
And that's why, Bill, when I present and you and I present, right, we talk about, hey, if you're just using this basic stuff, you need to get off of Citrix. But let me make sure you understand what you're saying no to. And then once you start explaining it to them, they're like, well, I need that stuff. You're not currently using it. I know, but I didn't know I could use it. And that's our opportunity to add value and then lock the Citrix platform into people, not because they can't get off of it, because there's stuff that they didn't know that they should be using.
Exactly. All right. Anything else, guys? Because we're at the end of the article. Pretty quick one.
No, man, I love this. Like I said, it's a quick, it's an easy add-in and immediately useful.
Well, let me hit the guys with something else this totally different topic, but on the idea of using Citrix DaaS as the platform of service for the virtual app and virtual desktop delivery. The one that I still run into people, I did it last week, they still have NetScalers, or they're holding on to on-prem Citrix everything because of the NetScalers, or they're using NetScalers on-prem. If you're listening to this and you haven't tried running your ICA sessions, your HDX protocol sessions through the NetScalers that are part of the as a service offering here, you're slowing down. More than likely, you're slowing down the protocol because you're trying to route them back into your data center and then off to wherever they go. I guarantee you the Microsoft internet connection is faster than yours.
Very well could be, Andy. And I think, some of those customers, you're absolutely right. And a lot of those customers are leveraging those on-prem NetScalers for load balancing and content switching and web application firewall and bot management and all those other things. And those guys, they've got a lot of those customers have that need for that NetScaler. But to your point, that doesn't mean they absolutely have to run ICA through them. They could still use the cloud-based access and then leverage the on-prem NetScalers for all of those NetScaler-like functionality.
For me, you got to tell me why you need it these days, not what you use it for, but why you need it.
Right.
For this workload, for the ICA, HCA.
For the ICA, yeah.
Yep. I mean, it's to Andy's point, it's a worldwide network of POPs that not all of them actually, so that all ride the Azure backbone, but we do have some POPs that are AWS, we do have some POPs that are GCP as well, but I can promise you that all three of those are much faster than your internet connection for sure.
And then when it comes to your, DR plan, your, backup plan for those NetScalers that manage the ICA HTX protocol, you don't need one. It's not your problem anymore.
No certs to manage. That's important. That's a
That's
big one, actually.
Yeah, we deal with that a lot. Folks whose certs are about to expire, and they always call us to help like 2 days before it happens, or sometimes the day it happens.
I'll give you guys a quick example, quick story. I'm over here on my Azure DAS, hosted in Azure, virtual desktop with my NetScalers in Azure as part of the service. And I just clicked download on a bunch of podcast files. And then I looked over and looked at you guys and looked back, and all 10 files had already downloaded. That's faster than what I got.
Yep, for sure.
I didn't believe it. Now I had to go look, and yep, they're there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's when you start looking and seeing if those are like 0 byte files, because it just downloaded the header, not the entire thing. You realize, holy crap,
It happens so fast. It seems unbelievable.
Yeah.
I miss my modem noises.
I do too. There's a more fuzzy there.
Or you're sitting in the server in the data center or the server room back in the day, and the lights that blinked on the server told you whether the hard drive had activity. We don't see those anymore, right?
Oh, I do miss hoodies in the data center though. That was always fun.
Yeah, for sure.
It gets
The lights, they're just solid red now because they're reading and writing so fast.
That's right. Exactly. All right. Well, any other final comments before we adjourn for the day, gentlemen?
I miss the days of having to go into the data center, putting on a parka and gloves just to be able to get in there because it was so cold.
Oh yeah. And then you walk around the first cabinet and you take that turn between the cabinets and
very warm.
I got to take this thing off right now. It's just blooming hot there. So yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bill, I'll do another quick commercial for you.
Okay.
You're going around the country doing these Microsoft and Citrix better together technical overviews.
Right.
You got one Charlotte this week, Raleigh this week. What else you got coming up?
Yeah, we got those two, and then we've got one in Atlanta in September. And I believe there's three more. One in Philly, one in Florida, and one in Washington D.C.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, check out Bill's LinkedIn. He'll post that.
I will. I'll repost the schedule. Yeah.
And if we're not one of those cities and you would like somebody to come in, buy lunch for your team and go over, what this means, what the real Microsoft and Citrix story is together with Microsoft and Citrix in the room, all holding hands with each other, let us know.
Yep. Reach out. I'd be happy to go anywhere in the country or beyond to deliver the message.
It's been when we get in front of people and have this conversation, it is eye-opening and well received.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a really good Q&A is what it is too. So, I mean, listen, Bill and I, by the way, I'll see you tomorrow, Bill.
Yep.
Bill and I are doing the one in Charlotte tomorrow, and the Q&A and the questions that just come up are actually pretty good. So I would say show up, bring your questions, and learn something.
Absolutely.
And whatever you think's a dumb question is not, because there's somebody else in the room that has that same question. They're just not willing to bring it up.
I can promise you I've probably asked all those dumb questions too. So
sure I have. All right, gentlemen. Thank you all. Have a good day, nice week.
Excellent. You do the same. See you guys.
Thank you.